Hello, fellow druids. Welcome to a full circle. We're going to do something a little bit different this time. Kinda. We're going to review the Old Witch of the Wood. Now, a couple caveats. First, I haven't played this. Not at all. Not yet. Second, and this is the biggest of deals. This is purely a casual release. This is supposed to be, I believe, part of a league or a summer event of some kind that Privateer is going to be putting out. This is a little bit of a sneak peek, but these are based on back in, I don't remember what year they did it. Anyways, the Lock and Load Invitational, which used to be like an event that volunteers, like former press ganger, or when there was a press gang back then, the press gangers, the forum mods, the employees, really anybody who worked with them. This was intended to be. This is intended to be like they did this for a fun event, right? And they made these casters, and what they did was do alternate history casters for basically all of the factions. And at the time, it was all the War Machine factions and mercenaries, and then all the Hordes factions did not have minions. So if you go and look in War Room, you'll actually see there's a button you can select when you're selecting your faction that'll say alternate history or something like that. I already opened it, so I don't want to go back now. But if you check that and it's one of those factions, you can actually see the rules for these if you have War Room. Eventually, they'll go up in either a League document or organized play document of some kind, or in the card database or something like that. I don't know exactly what the plan is there. And I believe they are actually also planning to add in versions for Convergence, Grimkin, Minions. It might be it. It must be it. Crucible Guard, I guess, if they're out in time for this. So, but nonetheless, I thought it would be interesting to talk about her. I'm going to actually try to get maybe one or two games in. Just to put this out there, these casters were not massively play tested. So, like, if you get into a situation where there's an unbalanced game playing them, fine. Or great, or don't play anymore. They were not worked through in a way that like absolute balance was meant to be achieved. If you look at like the Cygnar one, for example, Vinter is amazing, but you get 0 Warjack points. I don't know if he's good enough to play down 25-ish points on average. For example, he might be, but even they suggested like, hey, you may want to. You may want to adjust and play, like work it out with your opponent and play some stuff. Like Vlad in Protectorate has Signs Importance, and that's probably busted as hell. So just to throw that out there, these are certainly playable. They certainly shouldn't be broken in the sense that like they don't work. Shouldn't be. But don't expect them to be the height of balance by any imagination. And don't expect that tons of thought was given into like how they're going to fit in the army and all these things, right? This is meant to just be something maybe you do for this league that is coming up, and perhaps something that you just roll out once in a while. If you're like, oh, you know what, I'm going to show up at the local game store and I just want to play something different, maybe give this a roll. So, but I'm going to go through the rest of this. I'm going to go through as if as basically as if they're, what do I want to say, like as if she were any other model. I'm going to talk about what I think she's strong with, places to play her, ways to approach, etc. So this is the Old Witch of the Wood, a Circle Warlock. Note, not Blackclad nor Tharn nor Wolfsworn. So just Circle Warlock. I think the only other one with that designation is Wormwood, which makes sense here. So these are all designated with the number of -1. So if you look at most cards, you'll see like, for example, you'll see Kaya 1, Kaya 2, Kaya 3 on the requisite Kayas and so forth. These were all designated -1, just so there's no confusion. Anyways, Old Witch -1. She's speed 5, strength 7, mat 6, rat 3, defense 15, armor 14, command 8. She has Pathfinder. She's on a small base. She has 2 melee weapons that are Iron Claw, that are half-inch melee, power strength 13, damage type magical. She's Fury 7. She has 16 damage boxes, 28 War Beast points. Okay. Pretty standard. I'm pretty sure if you were to go look at the stat line for Old Witch and Khador, and I didn't, just to throw it out there, I have a vague understanding of what she does, but I think if you were to go look at her stat line, you would see that this is basically the exact same. Other than I would assume that the War Beast points are adjusted for the lack of Scrapjack. Then the rules she has. She has Augury. This model and War Beasts in its battle group ignore cloud effects and forest when determining line of sight. She has Bond of Stone. One non-character construct light War Beast in this model's battle group begins the game bonded to it. The bonded War Beast gains Channeler. And then it just explains what Channeler does. She has Cull Soul. When a living, this model can gain soul tokens. When a living enemy model is destroyed within 2 inches of this model gains the destroyed model's soul token. After this model leeches during your next control phase, replace each soul token with 1 fury point. And then she has Forest Walk, a la Baldur 1. While completely within a forest, this model can forfeit its normal movement to use Forest Walk. If it does, choose a location completely within this model's control range that is completely within a forest. Remove this model from the forest and place it in the chosen location. This model cannot use Forest Walk while knocked down. And I'm going to read this just because I think it's relevant, but tactical tips here at the bottom say, what if the Old Witch had decided her purposes were better served by the Circle Ouroboros than by Khador? Her mastery of terrain and elements would have easily allowed her to utilize Warp Wolves and Satyrs rather than Juggernauts and Destroyers to further her enigmatic agenda. Alright, spell list. There are no new spells here, just FYI, but she has Eruption of Life, which is Morvana 1 spell. It's a 3-cost, range 10, power 13, offensive spell. If you destroy a living or undead model, center 3-inch AoE on the destroyed model, remove that model from play. The AoE is Forest Terrain that remains in play for 1 round. Enemy models in the AoE, when it is put into play, are hit and suffer an unboostable power 13 blast damage roll. This damage is not considered to have been caused by an attack. Murder of Crows, so this is actually on the Old Witch currently, but it is a 3-cost, range control, AoE 5 upkeep, which says place a 5-inch AoE anywhere completely within the spellcaster's control range. This AoE is a cloud effect and hazard. A model that is not part of the spellcaster's battle group that enters or ends its activation in the AoE suffers an unboostable power 8 damage roll. Okay. She has Stone Skin, a la Baldur 1. 2-cost, range 6, upkeep. Target friendly faction model / unit gains +2 strength and armor and suffers -1 speed and defense. She has Tornado, a la Kruger 1, which is a 4-cost, range 10, power 13, offensive spell. Instead of suffering a normal damage roll, a non-incorporeal model hit by Tornado is thrown d6 inches directly away from the spell's point of origin and suffers a power 13 damage roll. The thrown model does not deviate. Collateral damage from this throw is power 13. And finally, a spell that is also an Old Witch special. She has Wailed Secrets. Weld? I don't know. 2-cost, range 6, upkeepable, non-offensive spell. Target friendly faction model / unit gains Pathfinder and Hunter. A model with Hunter ignores concealment cover, making a ranged attack. Obviously, the Pathfinder... Well, you can put it on some of the War Beasts that currently don't have Pathfinder, though they should be gaining it soon. Soon TM, really, because it's going to be probably around 3 or 4 months at best from the time of this recording. So, and then her feat, Field of Talons. More ancient than the circle itself, the Old Witch commands a connection to the land that allows her to force submission even from the trees and stones. At her word, the earth spews forth metal barbs to snare and rip at her enemies like deadly black talons of a terrible predator. Anyways, what that does rules-wise, it's the exact same as her feat in Khador, by the way. Enemy models that advance, except to change facing and end their movement in the Old Witch's control range, immediately suffer an unboostable power 14 damage roll. Warrior models damaged by Field of Talons become knocked down, and it lasts for 1 round. So there you go. That's the Old Witch of the Woods rules. I have not yet given this a great deal of thought. I've given it a minor amount of thought. Sorry about that. I think there's a few obvious things that you want to consider. I think you definitely want to have some kind of wold, because that's and you want it to be a light wold rather, because her having an arc node is something very unique and very cool. It's actually one of the things that I think might be really fun about playing her, is being able to take advantage of that. As a result of that comment, I would say there's really, so you've got one of three approaches. You can play her outside of theme. This is a casual game anyways. You might as well just play whatever you want. And then you can bring whatever light wolves you want. You can bring whatever battle group you want and not really have to think about it. Technically, you can't play her in Secret Masters because she's not a Blackclad Warlock. Otherwise, we would probably be discussing doing that, but she's not, so you can't. Again, if you want to work it out with your opponents to do something like that, obviously, again, this is a casual caster. That's fine. But after that, I think you're going to want to look at Bones or the Wolfsworn theme, the Wild Hunt. And that's purely because you want to bring an Arc Node with her. I'm torn as to which one I think is best. I'm sort of leaning towards the Wold Weird. I think we can all certainly understand from watching games of Crix like why having a Speed 7 Arc Node could be really, really advantageous. That said, the Wold Watcher is still Speed 5, which is not the end of the world, especially with AG, and is much, much less likely to die because he can Stone Form. Or in a lot of cases, he's going to be less likely to die. He also kind of like doubles up on her plan to get put Forest everywhere on the table. I mean, if you play in Bones, you may have either, but I think you're going to want one of those two. I do not recommend using a Wold White. They are way too fragile. They are cheap and Speed 6, so you've got that, but you only get one. You don't get to reselect another bonded War Beast. So I think you want to go with something a little bit more substantial. So I go with one of the other two. Probably the best ability out of all of that. Her feat is very good into things that care about POW 14s, basically. So even medium infantry is going to probably care at least a little bit. Or heavy infantry, medium base infantry. Augury is absolutely amazing. It's basically... I guess it's technically different than what Una 1 has, but it means that you just aren't there's no hiding from her battle group, and that's phenomenal. Wield Secrets is sort of an spell. You might use it sometimes to help something. Like your Woldbeard might want it, you can then ignore, concealment, and cover. There's a lot of things that you can't really hide from at that point. Let's see. Murder of Crows is interesting. It's sort of a control-esque thing. You get a cloud. It's a pretty big cloud, and you can see through it because of Augury. Her feat, as I said, is just very good. Forest Walk is really interesting. I don't know. You might find ways to get use out of it. And in a lot of ways, she can get use out of it in places that Balder could not. Because if you can use your Arc Node to go kind of wherever, and then you can get an Eruption of Life kind of wherever, and she has a 14-inch control area, which is also pretty big. So if you can find a forest to put her in to start with, or use a Wold Watcher to do it, and then you can find an enemy model, kill it, and be in the position you want to be. Could be pretty cool. Let's see. So Cull Soul is interesting on her. It's massively easier to take advantage of in Khador because she has I think it's called Unseen Path on her now, and it's Dark Path on Wormwood. She has Unseen Path, which lets her go to Scrapjack, and then or Scrapjack to her, and then a spell that lets them Berserk and it's +2 mat and Berserk through a bunch of guys. So I don't really know how often she's going to get Cull Soul off, but we'll see. You could also do some weird stuff because she doesn't have shifting stones in Khador, right? So you can like use the shifting stones to teleport her up into a bunch of dudes, kill them with other things, or even let's see, sacrifice. She has to move first, so you could kill them with a bunch of other things. She could gain their souls, and then like use Forest Walk to actually leave the battle. Or theoretically, if you could put the shifting stones up, you could do that in the opposite order. And then you can kind of set yourself up possibly for a big turn. That's something you could do. I don't think... I'm going to glance at the cards here again real quick. I don't think there's any like particular... Aside from the Wold, I don't think there's any particular strengths here. Being able to Arc Tornado to me seems really amazing. If you've ever seen anybody who plays like a Force Hammer caster, this spell is arguably better. There's less stuff that stops throws. And they do behave a little bit differently. So being able to channel a tornado at somebody, honestly, could be totally busted. And this is probably the biggest reason you want to go with a Woldweird is because you could, you could basically arrange for it to be a situation where it runs like behind something or to an extreme angle of something, and then tornado it forward with this spell, and that's going to be pretty good. You could, as far as Geomancy goes, I actually think Eruption of Life is a really good Geomancy spell, so bringing Wolds along seems like it would be fine. As I said, Hunter's nice for extra shots. Keep in mind it does only apply to ranged attacks. It's not it doesn't help to put it on her for her spells. Stone Skin, in the Wolfstorm theme, it might be interesting on Skinwalkers. It could be interesting on Wolves if you don't need that extra speed. In both cases, if you don't need the +1 speed. Obviously, you can put it on a Heavy if you know you're going to be able to get in there, or one you're going to place with Shifting Stones. In general, in some ways it's better with Wolds because their defense is already crap, so like you're not really affecting it much more. Certainly, I've probably talked about other places with Balder. I think basically or just you're like, I need a strength buff, right? It's a strength buff, so that's Old Witch of the Wood. I'm not going to go too much deeper into it. I think it's fun. I've actually looked at the card a handful of times. Because at first I was like, I tend to be somebody who's not. In fact, like my teammates were kind of like, "You're interested in a fluffy thing," and this time I kind of am. I think it's because A, Circle hasn't had too many releases. B, it's a caster. It's really compelling to think about. I think a new caster is always something that's interesting to give thought to, and possibly even give a game or two to as well. I've certainly encountered a lot of more so on the internet than in person, but a lot of discussion where folks want to sort of write a caster off as not really doing stuff before they've played them. And a lot of casters actually will be much better once you put them on the table. For example, like Chromac 2 or Vana 1, both very much stick out to me often as casters who play better than their raw rules will suggest that they might. Anyways, that's Old Witch of the Wood. Look for possibly some follow-up in the... Probably won't be in the next week, maybe not even in the next 2 weeks. But I am hoping to... I actually ordered an Old Witch. I'm going to convince my wife to do some... to do maybe a mod and paint her up. Not going to go too crazy, I don't think, but... I think it'd be cool to have. Plus, I'm sort of a completionist, so I kind of like the notion that I have all the models that can play in Circle. And this is, even though not a competitive thing, a model that can play in Circle. So I parts ordered just the Old Witch model from the store. So yeah, I'll have a follow up if I play her, and we'll maybe a lighthearted discussion over how that game went, or a battle report or something. So, anyways, that's gonna be all for this episode. If you like the content, obviously subscribe, share on social media, join in the conversation. We can certainly talk about Old Witch ideas if you have any. If you've got a list, by all means, go ahead and throw it out there. And of course, thanks for tuning in.